Right. I'm here after a month. So, what is our topic for today? Actually, let me make sure first that I'm correctly streaming since it's been a month. Okay, YouTube's up. Nice. And let's just presume. Yeah, okay. Okay, that's fine. Okay. We'll just pray the rest works. If not, I'll have a recording, so it doesn't matter. I was recently talking with Steve Speedos, and they expressed an interest in me streaming. And I was like, yeah, it has been a month. It's been a long ass month. And then I was kind of like, okay, well, I've been working on this game. I've been doing a bunch of the side work. And I was like, well, I kind of want to do a devlog to at least talk about where I'm at. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to endeavor to do a devlog on where we're at. I feel I'm like pretty close to my minimum viable product for this. I've been trying to do like a small vertical slice to get like just a basic of like gameplay into this. To kind of like realize the idea to the point where it's enough. It has the basic stuff of like what makes a game to like really prototype it out and see how I feel about it. And then depending on there, how much more time I want to invest, basically. And originally, my minimum viable product was similar to my definition for what a game is. It was like, okay, I need a win condition, something that like the player can work towards. I need a lose condition so that they can actually lose the game. And then I need like rules, basically, within the world to define so that it was actually like an environment or like a game. And as you'll see, we don't have a win condition yet, but I'm getting closer to that. And the lose condition is actually more interestingly in line, at least more compelling to me. So why are we here? I can start walking around. But why are we here? How did we get here is probably the better way to describe that. So something I've been wanting to do this past year. I said at the beginning of the year something I wanted to do is I wanted to follow in my friend Fuzzy's footsteps a little bit and do like games that only take like 3 months to make and then list them for like $1. Because I really liked his output of games. And I also really liked the idea, after having worked on Jump Off the Bridge for like 8 years, on and off of like constantly like dealing with artist block and stuff. I was like, dude, it would be so nice to just work on something in like a really small scope and then go from there, to have like just a sense of finality to it. I think that's what I was really looking for, something with finality, to be able to just like, go into a project and then it only be a couple months of something and then release it. And he saw some success in his work. And I was like, I think I could do that after all the skills I've learned over the years of doing Jump Off the Bridge. Because Jump Off the Bridge, essentially, each level is like its own mini game, basically. And I felt like I could probably expand aspects of those things. Like I had a bunch of code. I had a ton of things from all the stuff I've learned over the years. So anyways, I've been wanting to do that. And then come May, right? I hadn't done it. I hadn't gotten to the point in May where that happened at all. And time just flies, especially when, you got a lot of stuff this year. And this year has been particularly long and difficult. It's been long. I don't want to talk about it that much. But, so anyways, processing. Give me a moment. I was talking about, yeah, it'd come May. So in May and in September, I have this camping trip that I do called Guys Weekend, where we all go up to property that my family owns, and then all the guys hang out. We play like board games. The guys like drink, whatever. They shoot guns. It's like whatever. It's exactly what you'd expect. Just a bunch of guys shooting the shit around the fire. But beforehand, I talked with my friend Gabe about doing a hike because after a couple years ago, we did our hike, and it was kind of an epic failure. Epic is the way to put it. I really overestimated myself. A lot of hubris there. Um, I was not prepared for that trip. I did manage to do quite a bit of it, but much more than I expected now that I know how difficult it is. But anyways, you'll get a video about that at some point of my epic failure. So anyways, I kind of want to redeem myself. I want to do another hiking trip. He bought me a backpack, and we decided to do that. And so, oh God. So, anyways, I wanted to run it back again, similarly, and see what I could do, see what I was capable of. So it was only 20 instead of 70 miles, like the first one. The first one was like 6 days, 70 miles. I didn't make it that far. And I was carrying like 55 pounds. And this one was only 20 miles. It was going to be like 2 days. So we had to do 10 miles a day. And I was like, well, I got a backpack now that fits. It's not an old backpack. I was like, I'm not going to do the food thing crazy again. Even though the food worked, that was the one part of my thing that worked. I was like, I'm not going to do the food thing. I'm just going to pack some granola and jerky, take it easy. And then, hello, Brent, welcome. And so and then I was like, okay, so, well, to give a brief overview of what happened in the first one. First one was like 6 days, 70 miles. I wanted to accomplish 3 things. I wanted to do it barefoot because I've been barefoot walking a lot. I'd wanted to bring my own food, not do astronaut food, like cook everything, basically. Problem is, food has water, and that's a lot of fucking weight. Okay. And then third thing I wanted to do was complete it. So we only succeeded in one of those, which was the food. The food actually worked out pretty good. I ended up cooking steak. I cooked liver and onions. I had like eggs. I brought eggs that had the bloom on it, so they didn't need to be refrigerated. Naturally, if you don't know that, eggs that have bloom on it, that they don't wash off, you can leave them on like the countertop for like a month or two. They don't go bad. People can actually put them in like lime water or something, and they'll keep for years, basically. But anyways, all that aside, you don't need to learn about food prep. We got to get into the game at some point. So, so this one, I was like, okay, the 70-mile one, and I ended up doing like the first 2 days, like basically like dying. I carried like 55 pounds in this backpack my dad lent me that he had from Boy Scouts when he was a kid. And it was an aluminum frame. It was not made for carrying 50 pounds of weight, especially when you consider the water and that was a nightmare. I have footage. We'll get to that at some point. Anyways, so this one we decided to do in May. I was like, okay, we got 2 days. Fine. We got this place, 20 miles. I want to try to do it barefoot. I made some healthy granola, brought some beef jerky. I didn't want to do the cooking crap this time. Had a backpack my buddy bought me, thankfully. Really helped me out there. And then I was ready, basically. The only thing we had to do is pack a little bit of extra weight. I reduced my weight down. I was like at 25, 30-ish pounds. And, it went relatively successfully. It was not that bad. I did the first day, 10 miles barefoot, and then I got blisters. My feet were totally effed up. And the problem, I suspect a lot of that problem was because that we were coming out of the winter and I hadn't been doing much walking, so my feet weren't as conditioned. They're more conditioned now because I've been barefoot walking a lot, but I don't think they were conditioned enough to do 20 miles just at the drop of a hat, barefoot after coming out of a winter cycle in Michigan. I should have conditioned more. As is what I should learn. Maybe the third time's the charm. Maybe the third hike I'll have learned it by then. We'll see. But it makes for a good story. Man's hubris. And my silly, I learn about a lot of what I can and can't do. So I suppose it's interesting in its own way. If you have the opportunity to fail, then I'd rather take it every time. So anyways, on the end of that walk, I was suffering that hike It was the second day. We had like a couple miles left, dude, and I'm like, oh my god, I was like dying. I didn't have that much weight. The backpack was sort of eating into my sides at that point, which is how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be tight around your waist. But my feet, they were just fucking killing me after those blisters. Anyways, so we're walking and Gabe was trying to keep me distracted. So we were talking about like literally just whatever stuff. It was like, it was awesome. He did a great job. We're in like the final stretch and he's just talking like, yeah, the weather. Yeah. Oh, yeah, this friend I had. It was great. It was super awesome. And one of the things he asked me is because I'd been talking about all year, I wanted these $1 games, the small scope, getting back to the main thing here. And he was asking me what games I wanted to make, and I started explaining them. I started going through like some of the ideas I had and some such stuff, and I had like a bunch of ideas, some of that we were going through. But what ended up happening was actually kind of interesting. When we got back to camp, it was like rewarding to sit down and go to Guys Weekend and just kind of like veg in front of the fire and stuff like that. But it ended up being too cold for a fire, so we were inside. And my second cousin, twice removed, henceforth I'm going to call uncle since that's easier. He was inside his camper playing on his Steam Deck, and he had recently bought the remake of Wizardry. I think it came out in 2014 or something, but it had been on sale, and he picked it up. And I'd actually been researching blobbers because I bought a couple of them. I hadn't played them, but it just so happened to coincide with my interest. And then it was cold out while we were camping, so he ended up playing it. And I got super invested in watching him play Wizardry that afterwards I was kind of curious to see, like, we had like a whole group of guys, dude. It was like 5 or 6 people just sitting in there, and we were all emotionally invested in these characters. We wanted them to survive this perilous dungeon. We got like annoyed with some of the traps and the design because they preserved a lot of the antiquated design of Wizardry in the remake to some extent, to the point where you can actually view the old Apple II wireframe dungeons alongside while you're playing it. Apparently, they built it on top of that game. The new game is built on top of it, so it's kind of interesting. Did Wizardry had humor in it, or was it a more serious game? That's a great question, Brent. So actually, I've been listening to, since I've been researching Wizardry while I've been working on my blobber project, I was listening to the interviews from Robert Woodhead and some of the other, like reading a bunch of articles about it. And it was actually just like a game made by a couple college kids. So it does have quite a bit of humor in it. It's kind of silly. It doesn't take itself too seriously, which I think is some of the long-standing interest in it. It's just people having fun, basically. At that time, it was guys that wanted to bring, well, Robert Woodhead specifically said that one of the problems he had with Dungeons and Dragons was that the adjudicator, the judge, the rules guy, the GM, the DM, whatever you want to call him, it was like loose. That was his biggest problem with it, is that there wasn't this aspect of like a controlled world resolving itself consistently every time. And one of the things he seemed like he wanted from a game was the control aspect of like having a game resolve itself accurately, basically. And so what they ended up doing was there's a whole history that I'll get into another day about how he ended up getting to the point of making it. But essentially paired up with another guy, I believe Andrew is his name. Yeah, because the big bads in the game are just their names backwards. The two main developers. So it's like Wordna and Trevor. So instead of Robert Woodhead, it's Trevor, and then whatever. It's kind of funny. So anyways, I haven't actually played a ton of Wizardry. I've only put a couple hours into it, aside from the like 10 hours I watched of Wizardry, and then I've been doing a bunch of research on the game itself and then the code behind it and stuff like that to try to figure out how to do it for my game. But it was more of like a humorous game. It's just a bunch of kids playing around trying to get Dungeons and Dragons working on an actual computer so that the judge would basically be consistent every single time. And then that's how they programmed it. Some of the humorous things in the game is like if you bump into a wall, it'll say like oops or like ouch and stuff like that. Some of the enemies are kind of like silly. They have, I think, they got like capybaras and just weird stuff. D&D did have aspects of that too, but they had fun with it. So one of the things I was longing for while watching these like hours and hours of uh, my uncle playing wizardry was I was like, man, I really want like I love this concept of him leading us like through the dungeon, him being the final say of like the decisions or whatever, and we're kind of just like along for the ride. I really like that, like, big bro leads us through the dungeon type stuff. Where it's like, you're just sitting there. It's not like so investing of a game that like it takes all of your attention generally, it's just kind of like a not necessarily a party game because it's less I wasn't aiming for a party game necessarily, but I wanted that like silly aspect of it, like where everybody was actually contributing and it like felt like they were contributing in a way, but that one person was particularly like leading, and they were handling some of the bulk of that while you had to communicate with people, but with the same refined controlled world of like a world that resolves. So I was interested in multiplayer blobbers. That's basically how we get to this. I was like, oh, well, are there multiplayer blobber games, where people are part of the party, and actually listening to the interview, I listened to I think it was a Retronauts interview. I think it was a Retronauts interview. It's like one of the main interviews with Robert Woodhead. And Jason is his name. I can't think of the interviewee guy. I've seen this, or no, is it Parson? Whatever. It doesn't matter. Look it up. You'll find it. So anyways, I was listening to their interview, and actually one of the things that inspired Robert Woodhead from the start was he wanted to make a game that was multiplayer, similar to the system he had played before. Some of these dungeon crawlers actually had multiplayer, and he wanted to do multiplayer. Turns out Apple II did not have the capacity to do multiplayer at the time. The internet was not as big. It was a lot more whatever. So you ended up just doing a single party with your characters and then you control it all, whatever. It was a game. It was like the basis of like these, you control a bunch of characters and then enter a dungeon type stuff. So when I was looking at multiplayer blobbers, turns out there's like barely any. I found one called Shadow of Eusebius that was created in the 90s, and there was a remake of it that I played. You can find some of the footage of us playing it on the YouTube archive as well, called Medieval Lands. And that kind of had some of the concept of what I was looking for, but there was hardly any other ones. Some of them, there was like a modern version of a blobber, but it was focused more on the Warcraft type stuff, where it was like you had these cooldown abilities, and then it's on Steam. I haven't tried it yet. It does look interesting, but it doesn't look blobbery to me. It looks more like a series of fights and then more like Warcrafty with the like cooldown abilities type stuff. It looks interesting, but it doesn't look like quite what I was looking for. It's not Shadow of Eusebius. It's like a weird mix, but it did have some aspects that I thought were compelling. So there's like barely a market for these multiplayer blobbers, at least not that I can find a ton of them. I was like, okay, well, if I'm here, then I got to make the thing that I actually want to see, basically, and so it sort of coincided with me wanting to make these like smaller scope games, and then also it coincided with like wanting this weird niche game that didn't exist. And so that's how we get to here today. So you can understand some of my philosophy moving forward. That was kind of like the backstory for why we're here. Now, I didn't think I could program something 3D. I've never done 3D in Game Maker before, but I actually found like I was surfing through trying to find like open source basic projects to see like if somebody had done something. What I really wanted is I wanted a tile system where it would convert tiles into 3D so that I could visually edit the maps, because I really don't like stuff where it's like just a block grid of code, a 2x2 or whatever, a three-dimensional array. I don't want to deal with any of that. I don't want to change zeros and ones. I don't want to put like a 4 for a wall where it's like like a grid of zeros. No, that drives me insane. I wanted a tile system that converts those tiles into grids and then converts the grids into actual generatable things so that I could actually, scope it all out and see visually what it looked like. I'm more of a visual guy. My programming is rudimentary. I'm getting better at it, but over time, I've learned a lot through Jump Off the Bridge, surprisingly, because each level is different. And this game has actually taught me quite a significant amount having to go through and do that stuff. So I wouldn't call myself the best programmer, but I do learn more and more, especially with this project has been pushing the hell out of me. I've never done turn-based stuff. I've never done enemy AI that's like really complicated, but we'll get to it. I'm going to show you this shit. I'm going to show you at least what it looks like representatively in the game. So now let's get to the game. I'm super hyped for this. Thank you, Brent. Yeah, so now, first off, briefly, I haven't played a lot of tabletop RPG games. I've played like one-shots at Guys Weekend and stuff like that. So I'm not super familiar with Dungeons & Dragons. I've had the books. I haven't really read them. I had 4th edition. I never really had a group. I kind of made my own games when I was younger. I made my own like tabletop things that we'd play with people, but it was like a really loose form of playful play pretend, role-playing with dice, and I was like the adjudicator trying to figure out how to resolve roles. But it was just like fun for everybody to hang out, basically. That's all it was. It was an excuse to like play pretend, hang out, and try to have this system. So I was researching turn-based games, like what makes turn-based games compelling. Because I've played a bunch of turn-based games, and some are better than others. And then I was also looking into blobbers, like, well, what makes a blobber? What makes like these games? And for those that don't know, a blobber is basically you have a group of guys, and they all move as a single unit. And like I said before, I really like that idea of like your big older brother, whatever, like leading you through the dungeon, or like your dad or something like that. And then like all the kids were playing like these characters. They were part of it, but the parent or whoever, the authority, the leader essentially, is the one that's handling all of that rest of that stuff. So, we get to hear today. So one of the compelling things I had to start with was after getting the world running, I got the world running, my first task I had to settle, basically, was to, I kind of jumped around a little bit. I jumped around, but one of the things I needed to solve was the lose condition, which is the first thing we're gonna talk about, because that's kind of like the most, it'll get into the rest of the stuff, basically. So you'll see in the lower left here, when I was researching Dungeons & Dragons, pretty much all RPG games kind of like stem and branch out from other games. And because of that, a lot of them trace their roots back to Dungeons & Dragons. And you'll know from Dungeons & Dragons that like the basic stats you've kind of seen in like every game is like strength, it's like dexterity. Sometimes people use like agility instead of dexterity. There's always like endurance or constitution. There's always like charisma or things like that. It always pulls back, and each game does it slightly differently. If you look at the old Diablo, it does it slightly differently. If you look at World of Warcraft, it does it slightly differently. But they all trace their roots back to Dungeons & Dragons, and Dungeons & Dragons traces its roots back to tabletop wargaming, which is why it's kind of interesting, because some of the things that would come into Chainmail and then Blackmoor and then go a little bit beyond into what we get first edition Dungeons & Dragons type stuff, or 0th edition. Hey Addo, welcome to the stream. So some of the things that they pulled from that come from tabletop wargaming. So your wizard that you play in these games actually traces its roots back to like artillery cannons and tabletop wargaming, because all it was a ranged unit. Even like the thief and the rogue go back to tabletop wargaming. And one of the problems is that they kind of conflate a lot. Now these ability scores are used for, they're kind of, it seems from my research, they're moving away from ability scores resolving stuff, but the roll check stuff didn't even come in till 3rd edition. And what I mean by that is it wasn't like, roll to check strength or roll perception or something. That didn't exist. Back then, the ability scores were kind of just like these like base things that kind of modified some of your stuff, but there was never a roll to check type system. That didn't come in till much. Tanky bullet sponges. So I'll get into some of the solutions that we have for that. But anyways, yeah, 8 is kind of a lot. So yeah, 8 is a lot. But I wanted to offer the opportunity for somebody to play with more people. Because I don't like 4 feels too little, especially when you have, you got to have at least 8 characters. No, so you can have 4. You can just do 4. You can play the whole game with 4, but I scale the enemy encounters up based on players after 4 or characters after 4. So 4 is much more manageable. Playing 8 is dealing with a lot of logistical stuff. Yeah, I remember the days when I had 8 friends. Yeah, see, I was envisioning this when I was thinking about it, and I originally was going to do 4, but then I was like, nah, if we're going to go ambitious and be more interesting, like, how many games support 8 players? Did you know PlayStation, the modern PlayStations, don't even support 8 controllers? Only Xbox and Switch does, barely. Because I say barely for Switch because I don't know if it counts double Joy-Cons or if it just counts single I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that more. How many different characters do you have? Now, do you mean races or do you mean like, because we're going to get into the character create in a second, but I'll get into that with it. Yeah, Super Smash Bros. Has 8-player mode. I know it does, but is that half Joy-Con or is that full button capacity Joy-Con thing? I think it is full capacity controller because they have like the weird split controller stuff. But anyways, computer does do it, but it's weird. Oh, you have to create one. I thought you had like set characters. No. You create characters, yeah. Here, let's actually briefly, before I go, okay, think full capacity. Before I go into the loose conditions and talking about this, let's visit Marin, and you can look at my rudimentary character thing. So yeah, I actually, because if you move too much, and without stopping, you can actually hit a wall. Actually, I can show you if you keep hitting the wall, there's like a whole bunch of stuff like in the combat log that shows up. And then you can actually die by doing this. So anyways, yeah, let's visit Marin, Brent's favorite character. All right, so when you get to the guild hall, you'll get the ability to register a character. Okay, and I don't have a paper here, so just imagine a paper here that'll show up at some point. But you can press to join. So right now it only has 4 characters, but if I had 8 controllers and I did want to join, I could do it that way. Let's create a character. So I have this really basic rudimentary thing. Can you join? Not at the moment. Not at the moment. I'd have to push this to Steam and then we'd have to remote play it, but you can. Next devlog, I'll have you guys join and we can actually test it. Would you be able to use a keyboard? That I'm not entirely sure. For the next devlog, we'll do a test. I don't know if you'd be able to use keyboard. I think I would be able to use keyboard, but you would have to use joystick. I think that's how Steam Remote Play works. You have to set up a profile for the Remote Play stuff. It's really weird. So anyways, I'll set up a character. I can name my character. I can also remove stuff with backspace for this. And then you select your race. So right now I have a couple races that are basically in there. And then they have like a little description. I gotta refine that or whatever. But you can be a human, an elf, a grognak, which is my own weird created thing. We also have a brownie. I wanted to do a brownie. I really want to do it. We'll play a brownie for now. And then you can select your color. This will determine the color of both your like border as well as your attack line for referencing later. Let's do green. And then you confirm, registered, and then exit. And now this character replaces whatever you had. Okay. And right now, a basic character starts at level 1. They have 100 trading points, which I'll get into a little bit when I talk a little bit more about the ability scores. I just gave them 1,000 gold so I could test the shops and stuff. And then each character has these ability scores. So let's talk about the ability scores. They have a weight limit as well, how much weight they can carry. So a lot of games iterate on top of already existing ability scores. I kind of wanted to jump back and do something my own and a little bit more interesting. I kind of based it a little bit off my own philosophy. So you have right here, we'll go through each one. You have Thews, you have Pith, you have Metal, Wit, Grace, Ardor. I think it's pronounced Ardor. I just pick antiquated words that I like that sounded good. Because what I was trying to do is, so each of these are kind of they're couplets. Couples, duos. So Thews and Pith are like your strength stats, basically. So they're physical. So you have an outer and an inner stat. Kind of like an HP and an MP pool, essentially. So Thews is like your outer health points, okay? And we'll get into the lose states in a second, but think of it as like your outer HP. And then Pith is like your inner MP. It's kind of like stamina. Okay, so whenever you use an attack, it drains that. And then metal and wit are similar, but for the mental space. So whereas thews and pith, thews being like your external strength and kind of like your health, your overall physical HP, pith being like your stamina, your inner, your core. And then metal and wit are like your mental. So your metal is like your mental HP. Okay. And then your wit is like your mental ability to process things, your mental MP. And then grace and ardor are similar, but for spiritual. So grace is like your spiritual grace, like how you can carry yourself, your spiritual HP. And then ardor is your inner, like spirit, how much inner spirit you have. And this is going to play into the lose conditions, which we'll get into next. So how does losing in this game work? So we actually have to go back slightly because some of the research I was doing, I was reading articles about game design, specifically for tabletop RPGs. And this guy I found, Angry GM, did something, an article called Shallow Combat, with a K for combat. And he talks about why some of the combat in Dungeons & Dragons is shallow and some of the aspects of that. And I quote, in the article, he talks about this YouTuber, Joseph Anderson, and he said, which I'll reiterate to you, he says, YouTuber Joseph Anderson, who provides a very excellent and very, very long video game analyses, put it best in his Only Sane Man critique of Darkest Dungeon. Turn-based combat, he said, is boring. And he later said that the barest bones version of turn-based combat can be summed up in one sentence. Make sure you spend some turns healing or else you'll die. Okay? And I kind of agree with him. Like, if you I haven't watched this video or his analyses or anything like that. But just from the quote, I kind of agree with him that turn-based games are literally just like, make sure you spend some turns healing. And that's like super boring. Basically, when you extrapolate it out to it, it's like, yeah, he's kind of right. Like, turn-based games do have that vibe of, yeah, just heal every so often, use your biggest damage. It's like really boring. And so Angry GM goes on to explain that his solution for this, which we'll get into, is if combats always devolve into a kill or be killed damage races, then offering a goal besides kill or be killed should fix the problem. If fights were about disabling, capturing, or demoralizing, or dispiriting, or whatever, there'd be a good reason to focus on shit other than damage dealing. Which is a compelling point, right? And then so I took this, and I am going to get to the point where, in this iteration of the game, I'm not at the point where the win conditions there's alternate win conditions for enemies. I just got my complex enemy AI into it. But I actually started with the reverse. I started with, so if the problem is that losing devolves into a damage race of kill or be killed, zero-sum game, whatever, winner takes all type thing, then what if losing was variegated as well? So we'll get it here. Let me catch up with this stuff first. So, wait, I gotta get to Addo. Oh, wait. Okay. You have an old controller. Okay. Does selecting one color prevent another player from... No, you can pick the same color for everyone. You're not color locked. It doesn't necessarily matter what color you are. It's more of an aesthetic thing because you'll be able to see who's moving when you're like in a game or whatever. You have 6 health bars. Yeah, essentially 6 health bars. And the reason I did that is because in Dungeons & Dragons, Constitution or Endurance always scales your health, your hit points upwards. And I thought it was annoying that none of the other stats did that. I was like, why is it that... And then some games you have like an intelligence stat and a constitution stat, and intelligence or like your magic, whatever the stat is for magic, will scale your MP bar, and then the other one will scale your... I was like, why don't they all just scale a bar? That makes more sense. Why doesn't every single ability score you have map onto some bar? So you're always tangibly gaining something. It's always vague. It's always like... dexterity is the strongest, most OP stat because it handles your turn initiative, how fast you attack, whether you're attacking first. It'll handle your evasion, your ability to evade stuff. It also handles your ability to like do and move within the environment and the world. It's like really overpowered. I really dislike that when you look at ability scores, dexterity is like pretty much the clear strongest, and then whatever your class is, that's the next strongest thing. Like if you're a warrior, then strength scales your damage. If you're a mage, then like whatever, intelligence scales how much things you can. If you're a druid, it's like wisdom, whatever. I just thought it was dumb, so I was like, F it, all of them map to a bar. That's basically how we got there. So, Addo, great idea. I'm already ahead of you on the negative mental thing. We'll get to that. And idea Pith and Ardor would be below the bar and much more closer to the other. Yeah, I got you there. I could probably scale them slightly different. More modern turn-based games like Expedition 33 allow parrying damage so you can win fights without taking any damage, but having different goals in a battle is a way cooler idea. Yeah. Oh, hell no. Yeah, they want bot viewers. You may grow up, but you're still as stupid as before. Yep, that always happens. So let's get to, before I get to potential, at some point I'm going to do alternate win conditions. Okay, that's a given. But I started actually instead with fleshing out lose conditions, because every game is essentially you die, game over, right? That's kind of boring. So I was actually talking with my cousins about this, and I already had this perspective of your physical HP and MP, your mental HP and MP, and your spiritual HP and MP, right? And I wanted to do a sliding scale of lose, so that depending on the variety of loss, it's much more interesting. So, first off, let's generate some more characters. Okay, I'm gonna actually store this guy into the barracks. Let's see if that works. Let's see. Wait, remove character. Okay, nice. It does work. Nice. Okay, so wait, you become the leader now? Yep. Okay, sweet. Okay, so we generated some characters. Now let's talk about lose conditions. So, actually, let me walk over to, how do we start with the, maybe we start with the, let's start with the top first. We'll go down. Okay, so, if a character loses all of their thews, their physical HP, okay, they are considered incapacitated. Not dead, they just cannot act in battle. They're downed, essentially, and need to heal to recover. Okay, now how this works is, if this guy is gonna die. We're gonna lose all of his thews. He's considered incapacitated. If one of your members is incapacitated, they cannot move. The driver of the party is the leader who moves the entire party. He cannot continue moving if somebody is incapacitated. That person must be either healed or carried. Okay, so let's start with what healing looks like first. So if I heal him, okay, he doesn't immediately get up. Okay, he has to still be carried. The problem is he needs to wake up. Okay, so we have to haul his ass. So I can haul him. Okay, and every time I haul, he has a chance to wake up each turn. And that chance is determined based on the scaling of all of his other bars. So if he's in critical condition where all the other bars are really low, his chance for rolling to wake up each turn is going to be horrible. If he's relatively healthy but just incapacitated, then his chance is going to be higher. Okay, now let's look at what happens if he's dead, okay, and what does the party do? Okay, you have to literally haul him all the way to town to get him healed, essentially, from the healer. And every time you haul, you run out of pith. And so you have to trade into another person to exhaust their pith, essentially, to be able to do this. Now, the amount of pith it drains is dependent on their fuse stat. So if they're really strong, if they have a big health bar, essentially, they can carry it longer. And I also have things like overexertion that you can learn that after exhausting all of your pith, it'll dip into your fuse bar, and then you start losing HP to carry all these stuff. Now, alternatively, before we heal, I will show you, you can actually deal with carrying multiple people. Let's see if this works still, or if I broke it. Whoop, no, I want to carry him. I can't carry, oh, too heavy. Okay, so I actually have a limit in there right now. Okay, I have a limit. If you actually do have a high enough thews, you can carry multiple bodies, but I'm glad I actually have that limit imposed in there. Okay. So then the bodies will literally just stack up. I have a sprite for all of the stuff. I'll level up his thews later, and we can go from there. All right. You should be able to dodge enemies in the overworld without fighting. I am considering something like that, like an invisibility spell. I think it consumes too much pith from how big the world looks like. Okay, that's definitely true, but the pith reduction does happen depending if you level up your character. Right now, these characters all just have base stats, whatever they start with. If you do level up your thews, it'll reduce, but I gotta adjust the damage number a lot. So that is in there. But like a person with like your max level in this game is going to be 10, and if you max up all of your ability scores to 10, you can carry like 7 bodies on your back for like 30-ish tiles. And I think that's relatively forgiving depending on how many ways you can do this. Do the enemies move turn-based or automatically? So I don't have right now. The enemies are just random spawn. So here, let's actually heal. Let's stabilize both of these guys. Stabilize him. Okay, so they're stabilized. I also have just a cheat menu, so let's give everybody full life. So that is the first lose condition before we get to enemies, Addo. That's the first lose condition. You're physical. If one person is knocked out, you have to carry them. Okay. Next thing on the list is mental. So if your mental is depleted, when you're in a battle, all of your actions get filtered through a chaos menu. So let's go through that. Let's get into battle. So first I'm going to deplete this guy's here, and then we'll also talk about what spiritual death looks like as well. So we have mental and spiritual death. So let's get into that. Actually, let me it doesn't matter. Does it matter? It doesn't matter. All right, let's get into it. So this is what the dungeon looks like. Now, as you go through the dungeon, sometimes you'll get. Oh God, we cannot have this fight. Okay, this is a really advanced fight. We're we don't want an advanced fight for the first fight. I want something basic. Yeah, just some rats. Nice. Okay, so this is what rats look like. So every time, if you have mental death, okay, everything is going to be filtered through a chaos menu. Okay, so you can attack enemies. We're going to use the basic slash. And then if you have, we'll also talk about spiritual death as well, because that's going to happen too. If your spiritual HP is lost, if you have depleted grace, every single time a round is passed, you have a growing chance to become possessed. A possessed ally will attack all of you guys, and you have to incapacitate them. You have to knock them out before you can actually continue, basically. The battle isn't over until the possessed person is completely knocked out. Okay. So I see some ideas from you guys. I think you should physically see them. I hate when you just walk in it. So I'm going to have a mix of both. One of my skills I'm intending is a detect skill. But we'll see where I get to with that. But yeah, right now they are invisible. What do you think about a possible wheelbarrow item that costs a lot and has high weight, but you can transport? That's actually a really good idea. The idea of having somebody carry a wheelbarrow is kind of funny. Yeah, if you have mental death, your menu will be completely randomized. So right now, the menu isn't randomized, but that's a funny idea. Yo, Steve, welcome. Great timing. We're talking about lose conditions in my game right now. Okay, so the wheelbarrow is funny, and I also understand what you're saying. Addo, I'll keep that in mind. Because I also don't like everything being invisible, but I do want enemies that move. I want enemies that can be detected, and then enemies that are just random encounters. So I'm probably going to do a mix of everything. Right now, they're just invisible. They're static spawns. You don't encounter something after X amount of steps. These are like literally placed things. All right. So every turn that you lose spiritual, if you're depleted from spiritual HP, you have a chance of being possessed. So let's just attack rats here. You'll notice that each time I attack, it shows whether they missed or not, whether they did damage. Okay, so our guy resists possession for now. It's a 17% chance. It looks like the guy that had mental death had a chance of acting normally. I think it's like a 30% chance. So let's just do another attack round and see what that looks like. The rats have like 8 HP to start, so they're relatively easy to kill. Okay, so one of our characters become possessed now, and then the other person that had the mental death swings at phantoms and does absolutely nothing, so they didn't achieve anything. And so now we kind of got to put this guy down that we have in our party as well. Otherwise, he's going to completely cook us since he's possessed. Oh, okay, so he decided for his round that he's going to heal the enemies. What a pain in the ass. Okay, great. A character that is possessed has access to your entire menu, so they can use the entire menu normally, basically. Their character profile allows them to. Okay, so they used overload to attack us. They used an ability that attacks everyone. So that's a nightmare. So basically, you can see there's a sliding scale. This is just a proof of concept, but there's a sliding scale of the possessed person, the person that loses all their grace. That is another aspect of losing. So so it adds a little bit more variation to turn-based battles, because I don't have these battles in now, which that'll be upcoming, basically. But if you can imagine a scenario where there are enemies that deplete your metal, they deplete your ability to act in combat appropriately, and if your mental HP is depleted, you could be in a situation where you drop your weapon, you wildcast a random ability, you target randomly, potentially hitting allies or foes, you don't attack at all, you whiff, or you push through, and like those are the chaos table effects I have currently. Or if there's an enemy that depletes grace, you got to look at everybody's grace level and be like, okay, well, so-and-so's low and we don't want him to get possessed, so perhaps we should take out the unit that's depleting grace because he's locked on to the guy that has the lowest grace, sort of thing. So there's an interesting aspect of, by fleshing out the lose conditions, I've actually created a kind of more interesting turn-based system is what I was aiming for. I want your decisions to matter a little bit more with regards to, like, well, if I'm attacking, who am I attacking and why? What target makes the most sense to attack right now? Like, if so-and-so has low, like, physical HP and there's a unit that's, like, attacking all of us every single turn for a small amount of HP, or let's say you have, like, a status afflicting a particular character, and that status doesn't get removed until you get rid of the enemy that caused it. Like, there's interesting things there. So that's probably some of the stuff that I was aiming for. That's like, all of it is kind of like iterating outwards. I was aiming for more variegated combat. I wanted turn-based to be more interesting, and I want to eventually do alternate win conditions, but I didn't realize how much more interesting it was going to be immediately from just doing it. I sort of just did it, started playtesting it, and then it's refined from that point. I didn't expect all of it to get as interesting as it did, basically, but it is really interesting. So add a spell that lets you know the stats of the enemies. That is actually in my design document. But good idea, Addo. That is a good idea. I was thinking of something that shows the bars so that you can, like, kind of, check sort of thing. But yeah, that's a good idea. Give information for player. That's a good idea. If I was to add on the wheelbarrow idea in a humorous way, you could swing the wheelbarrow to do an attack. There could be more damage if there's more people in it. Lol. That is kind of funny. The idea of pushing all of the bodies there. Have them be possessed by different gods, with each one doing different bad actions. That's also a compelling idea. Right now, the possession is just a flat chaos table, but I actually have different alternate lose conditions for enemies. For example, if an enemy loses all of their, like, mental HP, the rats can go into, like, a frenzy mode where they use different attacks and stuff like that. So that does exist. That is a cool idea. Very awesome. Thank you. So, anyways, let's try to win this fight. Can we win this fight? Maybe if I equip a weapon, I can. So I actually, oh, okay, this guy does not have a weapon. Let's Gigatorch our enemies. Does this guy have a weapon? He's got a dagger. Let's equip the dagger. What does this guy got? Oh, this guy also got a dagger. I was hoping somebody spawned with a short sword. It's a random debug thing. I have him, like, randomly set up. Oh my god, bro. This guy's cooking me. Okay, wait, we're, like, low on everything. Let's heal him. I have, like, random items that enter the inventory, basically. This guy doesn't have jack, bro. Oh, he's got a Thieves Potion. That's not bad. I think the enemies are going to hard focus me, so let's put on armor. Armor right now is not going to be that strong late game. It's only going to be good early game. It basically just, like, blocks a potential number of damage. How much... Let's double slash these guys. Nice. Okay, he's healed. Equips armor. Okay, we're like there. Let's give this guy pith. This guy can slash at least once. This guy's now. Okay, he's got a pith potion though. Target myself. And I'm gonna take out this possessed ally. Ooh, actually, curious question. Since I made this game and I don't really know. If I restore his grace, does that get him out of possession? I do have an ability that does that. I just programmed everything. And I haven't tested every possible available option at this point, so I'm kind of like, okay, I'm just going to heal him, because at least it's an action. And then let's double slash these guys just in case. Okay, that rat's down. Okay, we healed him possession. Nice. Okay, and then okay, so I have a drop system. Enemies drop loot. Awesome. Great work. So could you also do something like defeat pack leader, which would make all the other... Yeah, that's actually... So, Brent, that's a great idea. That's the next on my docket for alternate win conditions. I have a system that I'm developing where the enemies have alternate win conditions, essentially. They're not just trying to kill you. Some of their things may be kill, but I have things that I'm trying to program where, like, they have, like, an alternate win of, like, maybe the goblin's main goal is just to steal a bunch of gold from you and run away. Things like that. I'm not going to spoil all of them, but I do have stuff like that. Also, I think bosses and elite enemies should have bigger square. Yep, that's already programmed in for them to be able to have bigger portraits, and then I can spawn them randomly. I have 2 fights that are going to use that, but good idea. Maybe you could eventually become friend with that. So I am debating on that as well. That is also a potential. But a lot of this, I'm just trying to get my minimum viable thing. Great ideas, though, guys. It's actually really funny because it just sounds like I'm agreeing with all of your ideas, but I have all this shit written down already. I'm already ahead of you guys on this. I have like a ton of this shit already in. Do I want to pull it up? No, I don't want to spoil anything. But I do have a bunch of this shit already on the docket. It's funny that you guys are going down the same route. It must be first off, it must be that great minds think alike. And it also must be that, like, yeah, when given a system of like, okay, I'm dividing physically these stats into physical, mental, and then you have this system, like it's easy to iterate on, sort of thing. I think that's going to be what it is. But that is really funny. Possessed players gain negative grace over time. So it's actually, if their grace is depleted, that's when they get possessed. Do you mean negative ardor? That's potentially a terrible thing. Add verticality to the dungeon. I thought about it, but I don't want to deal with it. That is something I don't want to do immediately. I do not want to deal with that, the verticality. I considered it. I might still do it, but I don't. The way this is set up is it does like a bunch of generation weirdly. I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that. I'm going to be terrible at this game. That's really funny. Why do you feel like you're going to be terrible at this game? It is basically just like it is very turn-based thinking man's game is kind of what I was aiming. But I do want it complex and interesting. These dungeons the dungeons are made, but the way that they're generated, like through the graphics processing, is a little weird. Basically, I have to designate how tall a tile is going to be. And then I can change the z-axis of the player, so I might add verticality at some point, but it's like really weird. It's really weird. I don't know how I feel about it. It requires patience. So it does require patience, but remember, you can also play with up to 8 people. So that, that might be less patience. If you have 8 people offloading the thinking, it's different. So also another thing I forgot to mention, lose condition wise, let's kill our boy here. So he's down. There's actually a difference between incapacitation and death. Death is if all 3 of your bars are gone, you're considered dead, and you can only be revived by bringing the body to a temple. So a question you guys might have is like, okay, well, what if we have to haul a body, but nobody has the pith required to do that? What if we're out of stamina? So the leader can remove a down person, and then their corpse appears in the world, on the ground. And so that corpse is going to be there. I don't have it programmed yet, but before you guys suggest your ideas for it, I already have ideas of potentially monsters eating the body and you coming up to it, potentially the body being looted, or potentially the body being possessed and joining a battle with a bunch of NPCs you're going to have to deal with later. So if you just leave a bunch of bodies around, it's going to be a problem. So you don't want to leave a bunch of bodies. A bunch of bodies is bad. If you do have the stuff to heal the body, you can heal it or add it back to your party. The leader can choose to add the body to recover it back to the party. Or you can just loot things off the body. If you have a body there, if your whole party died and you just want to get in and like loot the body, you can just grab all their shit and go. As of right now, gold doesn't have weight, but I'm thinking of changing that as well. So that's another thing that is considering. It's in my consideration stage. I don't know how I feel about it. I was hoping on adding puzzles where one person solves a puzzle while the rest fight a horde of rats, for example. That's very interesting. I don't know if I'm going to do that. That is a very interesting idea. I'll keep that in mind. Interesting idea. You don't need verticality necessarily to solve puzzles, but yeah, it's the first thing. First time I saw a player being left behind. Yep, you can just leave them behind, and then you can go generate another character. And I believe it is persistent, so they should. Oh shit, I got in a fight. Let's just. We're not doing that fight yet. It's too terrible. Yeah, their body does actually persist between rooms, and it's still there. Actually, let me make sure. Do the items stay too? I kind of like programmed all of this in like a fugue. And anything I got stuck on, I was like researching shit. God, dude, this is like a low chance to get this rat horde fight, bro. I'm telling you, it's a low chance, but we keep getting it. So this fight, to show you, let's just show you what this looks like. So, which I might die, but this has rat wizards and then it has a rat guard, which I'm gonna change to a rat brute. But if you get stuck in one of this fight, it's a nightmare. Basically, these guys, they'll heal their allies, they'll use spells on you, they'll slam you. Look at this guy using a bunch of shit on me. Yeah, he's hitting me. This guy hits for big damage, whatever. It's a horrible fight. Look, we already lost another guy. Don't want to deal with that. Let's drop his body off. Get the hell out of here. So we got another body, corpse on the ground. Got to deal with later. Whatever. So that's the lose condition. That there is a sliding scale. Ooh, okay, we got a problem here. Did I leave a body over here? I don't think so. Who the hell's body is this? This must be I must have some kind of code that's messing with my... Who is that? Why is there a body here? Okay. Maybe the body just doesn't move properly. I don't know. Whatever. I gotta fix it. It's broken. All right. So random body spawn. Great. Could be somebody else died here. I don't know. So can they become an enemy after a long time that you have to fight? Yeah, I am planning on doing that. If gold has weight, you should do a banking system. Yeah, definitely have to do a banking system for that. I was going to do like a buy a house type thing and you can store shit. Otherwise, the bank charges you. There is time progression as well. So just so let's talk about some of the stuff I have around town while we're at it. So some of the ways after leaving the dungeon that you can heal are going to be obviously your abilities. I'm going to have an inn. Right now, you can stay in up to 4 different scaling suites, essentially. So I was pulling from Wizardry a little bit. I really like their idea of staying in the stable. So in Wizardry, if you stay in the stable, the only thing that gets recovered is like your MP, basically. Which the way to play Wizardry was your characters would age the longer that you played the game, and then eventually they die. Okay? That was how Wizardry worked. It's kind of brutal, actually. But the stable, for some reason, didn't advance time as much as the rest of them. So if you stayed in like a normal room, you'd get more stuff healed, yeah, but you'd also advance by like a week instead of like a slower time rate. And so what players would do is they would just go into the stable so that they could heal their MP, and then they would just heal all of their characters with the abilities. Because it used spell slots, like Dungeon and Dragons, so you had X number of spells uses per day sort of thing. So you just sleep in the stable, get your heal back up, and then you could just heal all your party, and then sleep in the stable again, and it was less time passing. Anyways, I pulled a little bit from that. So I have a dove coat, because I really like this idea of a dove coat. It originally back in the day when we like were training and domesticating more pigeons, now they're kind of just like, flying rats everywhere. But we had these buildings called dove coats, which were like these tiny little huts that would have like hundreds of doves just able to like sit in there, basically. And so I like the idea of you being able to stay in a dove coat. It's cheap, and you're not going to get the best sleep. It's a random variable chance, as you'll see in the lower left here. It's a 10 to 30% HP gain, or a 20 to 60, whatever. And it makes you dirtier. I have a dirt system. It doesn't do anything yet, but it does accrue dirt. You get dirtier if you keep staying in the dove coat with all the pigeons shitting on you. And I'm going to have some joke fights and stuff, whatever, relating to that. Anyways, you can stay in the dove coat, you can stay in the stable, which, as the name would suggest, not only is it a stable, but it's stable. You get a consistent 40% HP, 50% MP regen, and you get a little bit of dirt. Or you have the basic suite, it's like a random stuff, no dirt change, and then the actual luxury suite, which costs the most, but gives you full restore of everything. All of these advance time. Time doesn't do anything right now, but it does advance days. I'm going to have a system where like the quests require, you have to complete a quest within X number of days, otherwise you fail it and suffer a penalty. And so you have to really determine like, well, do I want to sleep and pass a day, advance a day? Some things I'll probably scale to the day timer stuff. I haven't done it yet, but it's in there. The system exists. Time does pass. Um, so make enemies stay dead and some recover every day you're outside. So I do actually have that system. So right now, if the leader has the ability to rest, and if you rest, you can restore pith, but every time you rest, it does respawn enemies. I'm going to add a system where if you just walk X number of tiles, it's an increasing chance to find a random encounter. But right now, the enemies are just a tile system. They are just statically in there, and then they have spawn points. And if you rest or advance time, right now the enemies do respawn based on that. How long will you be developing this game? So that's a great question. I don't know how long I'm going to be developing the game. Right now, I started it in May, like the end, like middle, second week, third week of May, because Guys Weekend was the first weekend of May, and I started developing it after that. So I've currently been working on it since May. So it's been like 3-ish months. 3 for it, right? May, June, July. Did I miss a month? Do I got my months? May, June, July. We're in August now. That's why I was confused. Yeah, it's like 3-ish months. I don't know how long I'm going to be developing the game. I am aiming to get my demo out, and the last thing I need for my demo, so I recently added complex enemy behavior, which you saw with that big horde fight. The enemies are complex. I'm going to actually implement alternate win conditions for the enemies. I wasn't sure if I was going to do it, but I'm going to do it just so I have some variegated enemies. I'm going to have like basic, really basic. I don't think I'm going to have portraits filled out for every enemy, but I'm just going to do it as basic as possible. And then I'm going to do a win condition as the last thing we need. I might also do the questing. I want to do status effects as well. I don't know how long it's going to take to add those things. I'm saying like plus or minus like 1 or 2 weeks, I think, for me to get to I at least want like a boss. There at least needs to be like a final enemy. He's like really hard. You got to train. You got to level up. I already have progression in here. I have a basic shop. So if you go to this guy, you can buy and sell your stuff. I got to fix the menus. You can see they're overdrawing based on the stuff. But you can buy things. We have the driver that works. We have the controller support that works loosely right now. I have a quest board. It doesn't do anything right now, but I have a quest board. I have this guy. You can learn the abilities. These pre-generated characters already come with a bunch of abilities, but you will be able to spend your training points for abilities. This game is going to be a classless system, which means that there will be no classes, as the name would suggest. I know it sounds self-evident, but what I mean by that more specifically is each time you level up in this, you're going to get training points. Okay, that's like your ability to train, essentially. And you can either spend those training points on two things. You can either spend it to directly train your stats each level, which all of your abilities that you have, your active abilities, scale off of the stats. So, for example, your slash ability actually scales off of your thews, which is your outer physical HP. Same thing for some of the magical stuff. It scales off your outer bar. Every time you level this up, it increases the size of that bar and also scales the stats. And the stats themselves also cost TP. So it's kind of like a give or take. You either level up the ability scores that you have, which gives you more access to bigger pool of like health or mental, whatever, things like that, or you spend it on the actual abilities which use the stuff. And then each level you get, right now I have it set to 75 TP. So, and then max level is 10. And then I have a thing that determines how much EXP. When you level up, actually, let's just show a level up right now. I can give myself a bunch of EXP. When you level up, all of your stuff scales. So the outer bars scale slightly higher, so you get a little bit more per level. I forget what the equation is off the top of my head. I've done like a shit ton of these equations, but it scales a little bit more for the outer ones, and then the inner bars are a little bit slower. But depending on what level each of those things are for you, and then depending on your level up, that also determines the bar output. Basically, it also determines the scaling of your abilities and stuff, and then you gain TP for your training points, and then you can use that to spend on more stuff. Yeah, add some lovable characters. Yeah, I do have some characters in here, but I'm gonna add more. My conversation system, I don't know how complex I'm gonna make it, but right now it's like just loose. I'm actually gonna use this combat log, I think, to do these conversations, and then the leader will be able to talk. I really would like a system where players vote on the actions. I think I'm going to try doing that, but that might be complicated. We'll see. Not that everything else isn't complicated at this point. So our attacks depending on the current thew or the maximum thew. So it's not based on the bar stuff. It's based on the level of thews right now. So like if I upgrade my thews here, we can actually test it. So your attack right now / you can actually use on other stuff. So right now it's an estimated 2 to 9 damage, thews damage to an ally. So let's level up our thews. So we can level it up to level 2. And then let's see what our damage is now for /. So you can see it goes from, it upgrades the minimum slightly and the maximum. Okay, and this also changes slightly depending on what weapon you're using as well. So he doesn't have a weapon currently, but if he was using a weapon, it would scale that as well. Because / is an ability that uses the weapon you have. There are other things that don't use the weapon. So for example, Gigatorch, one of your magic abilities, we can't actually use it. Let's heal everybody. Give everybody everything. So Gigatorch right now, use it in turn. Okay, I don't know why it's targeting random shit that doesn't exist. Oh, it's actually probably because I clicked escape and it didn't clear the enemy thing. Ignore that for now. Ignore it. Broken. It's fine. So right now it's targeting invisible rats that aren't here. So it does actually scale its damage. It doesn't use your weapon, but it scales it based off of what your metal is right now, whatever your outer MP bar is, sort of thing. You should be able to you should be able to decrease one of your stuff to increase the other with dark magic. Like you can make all your other sets as 0 except for thews, which is 6. That's an interesting idea. You can, so because of a classless system, you can just sort of aim for whatever you want. There's no limitation. It's just that each of the abilities exhaust different pools. So like / uses, I gotta actually put this in here. Actually, it probably should be in this menu, tell you what scales what. But yeah, they scale off of different stuff and they use different stuff. So these physical abilities all use pith. And then these magic abilities, they all use wit right now. And I don't have any spiritual abilities right now. But when I do, it'll drain your ardor. But to your point slightly, Addo, I do have it right now where depending on... we can't do it here. But in a battle, I have the ability for you to learn Overload, which allows you to exhaust. You kind of can exhaust more wit to pump your spell to do more damage. So, for example, if I use Gigatorch here, I can do the normal iteration of it, or I can overload it and spend extra. Right now, we don't have a lot of wit, but if I have more wit, it scales the damage up by exhausting more wit to deal more damage. And now it does a higher amount of damage, basically. So it's kind of interesting. I'm trying to take Magic, like The Gathering, the card game, and use things I like from that game to make the turn-based stuff more interesting. And that's kind of one of the things I thought of from that. They have like these overload surge spells in it. I was kind of thinking of something like that. Dunce Cap makes you survive a lethal mental attack once. Oh yeah, interesting. I don't have any equipment that does anything other than adjust stuff right now, so it's pretty basic. Sorry, gents, I have to head off for the night. Super late here. Yeah, no problem, Brent. I appreciate you stopping in. I'm nearing the end of my my thing here, so I appreciate it. Thank you for stopping in. So let's win this fight. We'll knock these guys out. Just slash them to death. Okay, you gain experience. Oh, I also have a system you'll see here in the lower right. There's a learning system. I was trying to prevent players from... Man, this game is so complicated. I got too much shit in here. Holy crap. All right, so familiarity system. How do we explain this? So every time you encounter certain monsters, you become more familiar with them. I was trying to come up with an answer to prevent people from grinding rats eternally. I didn't want them to be able to just grind the same enemy over and over and over again. And so I created a system where if you encounter them multiple times, you gain familiarity. And if you gain mastery of that enemy, it lowers the amount of XP you gain from the enemy, but it gives you a damage bonus for fighting them. So it makes it easier for them to kill. So then there becomes like an interesting question of, well, if I know the final boss is a rat species, do I want to grind rats so that I get mastery of them, so that I gain extra damage bonus on the boss? Or do I want to do the high risk reward thing where I grind as little rats as possible so that I get a bigger EXP payout so that it doesn't affect that for that? So there's like a weird balanced. I don't know if I like it, how it goes here. I got to do a lot more testing. A lot of this is like, it's like something like that. Add a clock item, which sort of works like a save state where you're close to death. You can use it to go back in time, but it only works for a current day. I don't know if I like that idea, but that is funny. That is a funny magical idea. I actually don't have anything displaying the clock, so I will have to show what day. I probably will show like where you're at physically as well. Um, but yeah, that's an interesting idea. I actually was gonna do the save state thing, like an old save system where you have to go to the guild hall and record your progress with somebody. That's kind of how I was thinking of doing it. Let me know how you think about that. But I like the old stuff. Like when you play Resident Evil 1, you have to like find these consumable resources like ink for typewriters. I don't want to do consumable save resources thing. I don't like that. But I do like the idea of like, a player being able to like come to a table, record their progress. I don't like autosave stuff. I don't like modern autosave stuff. Like if you truly get destroyed in a dungeon, I don't know if I want to punish them that bad. Um I want you to be committed to whatever happens, but I don't know if I want you to be like permanently. I don't know. It depends. Cuz like the problem is you're going to be deep in a dungeon, right? So like let's say you're on level 4. I don't know. I like the physically going to a location to save. I like that. I'm going to stick with that for now, but yeah, we'll see where I get to. I don't know. It'll depend. Yeah, but it only works for current day. I hated the saving in Resident Evil, but I was bad at games then. Yeah. Resident Evil is a very unique example of a very strange save system. Um, I also, let's talk a little bit about interacting with the world. So I already showed you that you can slash your opponents. I'm going to have mechanics based off of that. I'm not going to talk about that now because they're not in. But you can also externally slash stuff. Um, and it'll like interact with the world essentially. So I have that aspect of it. I was going to do some things where like there's hidden walls. Let's see if my hidden wall still works. I changed a lot of my codes. So I want the players to like work together to solve like interesting problems. So yeah, if you slash this wall, for some reason my wall code isn't coming up. But anyways, if you slash this enough with everybody working together, you reveal a secret area. That's kind of what I was going to do. Right now it's just empty and it shows the border of the map. But I was going to do like secret rooms and stuff like that where you can interact with that. You can also use heal externally. It doesn't have like a effect look yet. I was going to do some kind of like sparkles or something, but in case you want to heal a tangible person sort of deal, I was going to do something like that. Slashing cracks on walls will break the wall, but also, yep, I did that. Yeah, sledgehammer weapon that doesn't break on crack wall. Interesting. Yeah, the weapons right now are just like basic. I don't know if I'm going to do decaying durability, but I can consider it. I always hate durability in games. But yeah, as you can see, I do have quite a bit of stuff implemented for the several months I've been grinding the hell out of this game, which is pretty cool. I really like how it's turned into. If you want to see an example, we can go into 8-person fights. This is what 8 people looks like. The menus get much smaller. We can actually, yeah, well, whatever. This is what 8 people look like. And then when you get into a fight, this is a huge fight. The fight scales based on the number of people. And then, yeah, we can... Oh, we're on this guy. I got to make it so you can scroll through the menus faster. That's another thing I got to do. Right now, you cannot do that. We're probably going to get cooked because there's a lot of dudes. Yeah, oof. 2 rat wizards. I actually probably should attack the rat. Oh, my God. Rat wizards first. We're actually not taking too much damage because they're kind of weak. But theoretically, so these characters don't spawn with like upgraded stats. Theoretically, you actually, wow, they're like hard focusing that guy. He must have done the most damage, so they assessed him as a threat. But theoretically, if you were starting in this game, you would be spending your training points before you would go into the dungeon. So we have none of our ability scores upped, but we have access to all the abilities, which means we have like really low pools right now. So theoretically, when you have more pools, it would be a little bit different. They do also spawn with random weapons that you won't have access to. So anyways, that's just an example of what it looks like. Oh, and then most importantly,
We probably broke the game by having all these enemies still technically existing in the vague background, but it's fine. We'll figure it out later. I also made it so that you can try your damnness to externally slash her boobs, but they completely ignore the hit, absorbing the impact inconsequentially with an almost jelly-like grace. My own silly. I kind of envision like if you have a bunch of players, they're all just sitting here wasting their pith while the main person is like trying to turn in quest or something. That should heal your grace, yeah. Spiritually heal you. That's really funny. That's a great idea, Addo. I might do that. Because you are wasting, you're wasting pith. That's really funny. I got to do a better animation. It doesn't actually look as good as I would like. I got to refine it. But yeah. So I think that's like a majority of what I want to talk. So I got the inn loosely working. I got to fix my roofs. I don't know if I like these corners. The dovecote. This is going to be the dovecote. I got to actually make a dovecote with a bunch of pigeons in it. It's going to be our stable. I got like basic stuff in here. And then I'm going to have other characters with like quests and stuff. I think I briefly looked at Cecilia over here. Or Savannah, sorry. Cecilia is our innkeeper. Yeah, healing grace. It's a great idea. So yeah, this is Savannah. Yeah, Savannah. Some players can choose to play cards that boost each other's mental health but make them tired. Yeah, I was going to do gambling. Gambling's going to be in here. I actually started with gambling, but I removed it because I got to finish all the other menus. I also think, so right now you have to physically walk up to each of the NPCs, but I feel like if you have 8 people, it's going to be kind of annoying. So I'm going to do like an online buying type thing where everybody can like get a menu for each of these NPCs and just so like while the leader's walking around, like all these people could be like, oh, I'm gonna buy or something. I think that's what I'm gonna do for that. I don't know. I gotta play test it, but add many interactions players can do to each other, please. Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. Right now they can attack each other, they can heal each other. I have ideas for taunting, stuff like that, but next minimum thing I got to do before we consider these other 800 ideas, which I have listed. Stealing weapons, that's a horrible idea. That's a terrible idea. I don't know if I'm going to do that one. Maybe pickpocketing. That could be funny. Right now, you can't actually give gold to each other. I don't know. My give menu. Oh, it is only for the leader right now. That's fucking stupid. I got to fix that. Anyways, they can give gold to each other. Give him gold. Whatever. I got a bunch of these menus in there. They all got to be refined. They're totally jank. You can scroll through the combat log, see what happens. There's a lot of stuff in here. You can press M for a bigger map. It's kind of ugly. I got to fix it. Whatever. I got a bunch of shit in here. So to answer the question again, how long will I be working on it? I'm not sure. I want to get my minimum demo out, and then I got to play test the hell out of it. Once I get the boss in, and then potentially alternate win conditions for enemies, and then some variegated enemies, and then I have like a loose system. I don't know. We'll see how long that takes. I need a win condition. There's got to be a win. Right now you can progress. Right now you can earn gold. Right now you can level up. You can grind enemies. I got all of that. I need variations of enemies. I need boss. And once we have a boss, and then maybe quests so that you can earn extra money, because right now money is kind of tight. It's kind of tight earning money. 2 people can become in love constantly, boosting their mental health if one dies. Wow. Adam, that's a very funny idea. That's actually that I don't think I would have thought of, but that's very funny. Yeah, you can get married to another ally, which gives you a boost in your mental health, but a reduction if they die, you lose mental health. Oh, it's terrible. That is funny, dude. I like that. That's a very funny idea. Very funny. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but that is funny. That is pretty funny. Would it be easy to do that? It would be easy. Maybe. That's a maybe, Addo. We'll put that in the tab. I got to write that down. That's a weird one, but that's funny. So yeah. Also, Marin is not going to be the only person at the desk. I need something for the ladies as well, so it's going to be a revolving scope of people. So there'll be a hunky man for the ladies, or heterosexual women, and then I'm going to do some other weird creatures too. So it'll be different stuff. And I don't have like a day night cycle. I don't think I'm gonna do that, but we'll see how ambitious I get. It's possible I could be very ambitious. Give all the NPCs schedules. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. We'll see. I would like to get the base game working and then go from there. Donating organs with each other, swapping certain stats. Oh my god, these ideas. Win conditions, earn enough money to buy. No, we're not doing enslaving or buying women. No. I do want to do like earn money, buy a house though, like have your own storage place. I think that would be cool. YouTube chat has proper lag today. It's a shame. YouTube is usually really good. I have the latency really low. Maybe I'm just not reading fast enough too. If they die, there could be another random chance that the other half kills their soul. Oh my god. I didn't even read that from Steve. Oh god. Yeah, a suicide pact, bro. Jesus, what are we, Romeo and Juliet? Is that what we're aiming for? Make it so you have to build your own house. That's an interesting idea. Yeah, I already have a quest line where you're like cutting the wood line, and you have to use your skills and stuff to cut the wood line. That's gonna be in there. And that's going to open up that next area sort of thing. I got a bunch of stuff. I got a whole bunch of ideas planned. It's kind of an ambitious project. So my original idea was like to do $1 games and then do, just do the $1 games, but then only work on them for like 3 months. And we're kind of at the 3-ish month mark for this, but I really like how it's shaping up and I want to go a little bit further. So I'm going to spend, I don't know, we'll see what it looks like in a month or two and see where we're at. I have it on, I have the Steam stuff started, so I can actually push it to Steam. I have keys that I can send you guys when I get I'm aiming for like the minimum viable product vertical slice thing. So once I get that done, I'll send you guys keys and you can test it, and then we can debate on how far I want to go with it. If you guys like it, if I like it, I'll see if I want to spend more time with it. I do have a bunch of other game ideas that I think would take less time to do, because this is actually getting really complex, as you can see from all of the stuff in here, all the menus I got to shore up, all the different things. It's like kind of crazy. So yeah, make it so you can build your house. You can make it look however dumb it looks like. That's true. That could be funny. And you can add a bunch of random decor. That's cool. Yeah, that's a good idea, honestly. Decor, build stuff if you want. Gee, add customization. That would actually be not that difficult with my system, but 6 months with occasional updates. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is something like that. I think I'm going to do early access titles. I wasn't sure if I was going to do early access, but I think I'm going to do early access stuff. I think this is going to end up being early access and then just doing updates based on how I feel about it. Awesome. Can't wait to play. Yeah. Thank you, Steve. I'm like super excited with this one. It's kind of grown into like a little beast here. It's turned into a lot more than I thought it was going to. But as I kept adding stuff, I was like, oh, well, I was like lose condition, progression, win condition. That's all I wanted to do. And then I spent like 3 weeks doing like, okay, well, I want complex enemy AI. Okay, well, I want weapons. All right, well, how do weapons function? Okay, weapons need like a damage thing. Okay, I need to come up with a damage formula. Now I got a damage formula. All right, well, what about missing? Okay, that's true. They can miss something. So if they can miss something, well, that means what about armor? They need to have armor. Okay, then, and then it's like, well, what about armor penetration? Okay, well, we got Pierce now. That does armor penetration. And then the damage combat formula. Okay, so how do abilities work with your ability scores? Okay, and like, does that scale down? Okay, so each ability determines whether or not it uses the weapon. If it doesn't use a weapon, then it scales off this and it has a percentage chance to do this damage. Then I was like, okay, well, now we gotta target the different pools. So like, okay, so now this weapon does fuse damage, this skill does whatever damage. Like, it's just a bunch of bullshit. Oh god, it like constantly goes on and on. So yes, welcome Speedos. Yeah, I'm touching base on my devlog. You can draw enemies and stuff. Yeah, dude, if you want to design enemies, I would love to implement them. I'm gonna have to make sure that I either compensate you fairly and we have a contract, though, because I would like to, if I'm actually going to use other people's ideas, I want to either compensate them for their time, or if they want to give it fairly, that's fine, but I need to make sure that I have my copyright contract so I can legally use your shit, which I've done in the past for people's music and stuff, so not a big deal. But yeah, if you guys are interested in or have ideas, send them my way. Addo's giving me like 1,000 ideas this stream, which it is actually really funny, Addo, that we have so much already thought similarly, which is very funny. Wendigo 0101. Yo, what does the D and Monkey D Luffy stand for? That's a good question. D's nuts. I don't know why that got me so much. It was such a lowbrow humor joke, dude. Perhaps I'm exhausted. Perhaps that's what it is. Does it stand for monkey D's nuts, Luffy? Maybe. Maybe. Welcome, Wendigo. Welcome to stream. Thank you for your input. I appreciate it. Yeah, not very experienced with contracts. I don't want to be enslaved. No, literally all it is a contract that says, like, I have the ability to commercially use your stuff. Um, Cody, the middle name D thing is generally the plot point in One Piece. Oh, is it really? I have not read a lot. So in high school, I read some of One Piece, but I did not read, it's been forever since I've looked at it. I have also watched those amazing summary videos on the One Piece lore, but I'll have to go in and watch this. I believe they came up with the second part. The middle D name thing is okay, sorry. Every brave and aloof character has D in their middle name. It's a mystery. That's great. If there is one piece, where is the two piece? Ooh, who knows? So, anyways, yep, that's my game. It's growing more and more into this really complex beast, and I'm debating how far I want to go with it. I haven't decided whether I want to do day-night cycle. I haven't decided if I want players to be on, or these NPCs to be on schedules like Stardew, where they like walk around town, you can talk to them, which if I do that, I have to determine, well, like, does moving one space advance the world, or is it just they're moving and then when you get near them, they stop moving so you can talk to them? I have not decided any of that stuff. All I'm focusing on right now is the combat, the win condition, and then I got to create more abilities, and I got to create scenarios where the monsters actually attack your alternate health bars, basically, because right now they just only attack your thews. So next is going to be that. And then complex AI win conditions sort of thing I got to do. So anyways, that is an in-depth look at my game and what it looks like in the state. 3-ish months of working on it and grinding it out. I am actually really happy with how it turned out. I didn't think I was going to be capable of making like a 3D game, but I keep working on it. As you can see, it still has like some weird issues. I don't know if I'm going to be able to solve. Like, I have this weird like line thing going on, and I tried solving it earlier, but it's the way it draws like UV textures and stuff like that. There's always like, I think it's more visible when you go up. Maybe when I have a bunch of like NPCs and like grass vertexes or whatever. I got a bunch I gotta fix. Texture wise, I'm like doing all these on separate texture maps because I don't understand how to do the process that well yet. So all the sprites will have to be on a single texture page and then draw from that. I don't know. I'll figure it out. You fight a batshit insane guy who tries to convince you the sky is falling, which damages you mentally. Oh, there you go. I like that idea. That's funny. The idea of NPCs. That's a pretty funny idea. Yeah, so that's where we're at. This is my latest thing. I'm pretty close to, like I said, giving you guys keys for it. So give me like another week or so. We'll see if I'll have my enemies in. We'll see if I got some secrets in. We'll see if I got more shit for you to do. But even if it's just a bunch of enemies grinding in a dungeon, it'll at least be something. And yeah, that's that. That is that. I also got to determine each race is going to have abilities. I think I'm going to make their stats relatively the same, but they're going to start with different abilities and also have different equipment slots. So we got to deal with that too. Like Cody, jump off the bridge said, "Oh yeah, nice." Yep. So that's it. Oh, we got to carry this guy to continue. And we got to crash. Nice. Actually, we do need these crashes solved, so. Good crashing. All right, well, with that crash, that's it. That's all I want to do. I want to touch base. I don't know. I might do another focused devlog video that actually shows this in a much looser or a much more confined form, because an hour and 30 minutes to talk about all this stuff is a lot for somebody to get through if they just want to see the beats. So I might do another video. But anyways, that's what this is. I'll keep you guys updated. We'll talk more soon. The game is complicated. We'll see how much I get done. And then we'll debate if I want to go back to jump off the bridge after I get this demo out, or if I want to do another project that only takes a month. I kind of have like a month-long project thing I want to do. Like a gag. I have this gag project that's been irking at me, pulling at my strings. So we'll see. Anyways, thank you guys for coming out. Thank you guys for keeping me company. Thank you for the ideas. Thank you guys for engaging. Thank you, Addo. Thank you, Speedos. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Wendigo. I appreciate it. If I missed anyone, I'm sorry. That's it for now. I'm out. Peace.